The world was still in black and white. No one had walked on the moon yet, but people were flying there in their dreams. Televisions had 3 channels, phones were attached to walls, and a baby's cry, your cry, was heard in one of America's most exciting years. If you were born in 1964, you're part of the generation that witnessed history's greatest transformations. Come with us. Let's step through the door of that year together. Welcome to the world. One day in 1964, a baby was born. You. Your father was waiting in the hospital corridor, smoking a cigarette, because back then, fathers weren't allowed in the delivery room. When the nurse opened the door and said, "Congratulations," your father's eyes filled with tears. Your mother was tired but happy, and you opened your eyes for the first time to 1964 America. What was in the newspapers that day? If you were born in the spring, the Beatles had just arrived in America. Hair a little long, suits a little tight. 73 million Americans watched them on the Ed Sullivan Show. The world was changing, and you were being born right in the middle of that change. If you were born in the fall, the Civil Rights Act had just been signed. President Lyndon B. Johnson had taken his pen and outlawed racial discrimination. The streets were still moving. People were still demanding their rights. But something had definitely begun. Your home, an American home, in 1964. When they brought you home from the hospital, your home carried the spirit of 1964. In the living room, a huge black and white television sat in the corner. 3 channels, NBC, CBS, ABC, no remote control. To change the channel, you had to walk up to the TV and turn the dial. In the evenings, Walter Cronkite delivered the news. On Saturday nights, the Ed Sullivan Show, families watched together. In the kitchen, a white refrigerator, a coffee percolator on the counter, the radio playing. Your mother was probably a homemaker. Most women were. While she cooked, "Winston tastes good like a cigarette should," came from the radio. Cigarette commercials hadn't been banned yet. In your bedroom, a small crib, light blue or pink walls, toy bears, blankets. Your mother sang you lullabies at night. And the price of that home? The average American house in 1964 cost about $13,000. Your father's annual salary was around $6,000 to $7,000. Still, buying a house, buying a car, starting a family was possible on a single income. The streets, the world in 1964. When they took you out for a stroll in your baby carriage, what would you see around you? Massive cars with gleaming chrome. The Ford Mustang was released in 1964, a car that changed the world. Sporty look, affordable price. Young people went crazy for it. Gas was 30 cents a gallon. Nobody thought about fuel economy. Men wore suits and hats. Women wore skirts and heels. Hair was big and voluminous. Lipstick was bright. Young people's hair was slowly getting longer. The Beatles effect. At the stores, your mother went to Sears, to J.C. Penney. She bought baby formula, cloth diapers. Disposables didn't exist yet. Everything was reused, and the smells. Freshly cut grass, gasoline, cigarette smoke, coffee, your mother's perfume. The scent of 1964. Music, the sound of 1964. Music came from the radio, from record players. The Beatles were everywhere. I Want to Hold Your Hand. She Loves You. Can't Buy Me Love. Your mother might have been dancing, holding you in her arms in the kitchen, radio playing. The Supremes, Where Did Our Love Go? Diana Ross's voice was sweet and powerful. Motown music had exploded. Beach Boys, I Get Around. California Dreams, Surfboards, Sunshine. Roy Orbison, Oh Pretty Woman, that high, trembling, emotional voice. And Bob Dylan, The Times They Are A-Changin'. Folk music, protest songs. Young people listening, thinking, questioning. You would grow up among those sounds. The melodies you heard in your crib would become the soundtrack of your memories. Television and cinema. What started on television that year? Bewitched. Samantha, a witch trying to appear like an ordinary housewife. Children loved the magical scenes. The Munsters, a vampire family, but comedy. Horror and laughter combined. Gilligan's Island, 7 people stranded on a deserted island. Every week a new escape plan, every week failure. In the cinema, Mary Poppins was released. Julie Andrews, the nanny descending from the sky with her umbrella. Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. Children were enchanted. When you grew up, you would watch this movie over and over again. Goldfinger, James Bond. Sean Connery, Tuxedo, Aston Martin. Bond, James Bond. Men watched in admiration. Prices, The Cost of Life in 1964. What did life cost in 1964? House, $13,000. Car, $3,000. Mustang started at $2,368. Gas, $0.30 per gallon. Milk, 95 cents per gallon. Bread, 21 cents per loaf. McDonald's hamburger, $0.15. Movie ticket, $0.85. The average annual income was around $6,500. Everything was cheap, but salaries were low too. Still, supporting a family, buying a home was possible on a single income. Politics and society. 1964 was not an ordinary year. America was in the midst of profound change. The civil rights movement was at its peak. The Freedom Summer campaign was launched. Thousands of young activists were working to register Black Americans to vote. There was violence. 3 young activists were killed. But the movement did not stop. Martin Luther King Jr. received the Nobel Peace Prize in 1964. He was 35 years old. The Vietnam War was growing. The Gulf of Tonkin incident occurred. Troop numbers increased. There were no major protests yet, but something was changing. The Cold War continued. Duck and cover drills were held in schools. When the nuclear alarm sounded, children crawled under their desks. There was fear, but life went on. Space, toward the stars. In 1964, America was looking up to the moon. NASA sent Ranger 7 to the moon. For the first time, clear photographs of the lunar surface were taken. People were amazed. President Kennedy had made a promise in 1961. We will send a man to the moon before the end of the 1960s. Kennedy was killed, but his promise lived on. Children wanted to be astronauts. Toy rockets, space-themed cartoons. When you grew up in 1969, you would watch on television Neil Armstrong stepping onto the moon. Closing. And so, 1964, you took your first breath on a day in that year. The world wasn't perfect. There were problems, war, discrimination, fear. But there was also hope. There was change. There was a future. As you grew up, you would see that world transform. You would see the Beatles break up, Vietnam end, people go to the moon, computers enter homes. And you witnessed it all. Because you are the children of 1964. Now, 60 years later, you look back, and perhaps you think how different that world was, how simple it was, how beautiful it was. Welcome, 1964 baby. The world was waiting for you.